Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to episode 26 of the Prosperous Yogini Podcast. And I'm super excited today because it's another one of those episodes where I am not alone. I have Victoria with me today. Now, Victoria is coming to talk to us about those first 2 years after training to be a yoga teacher. So Victoria and I met. Well, I trained you to be a teacher, didn't I, Victoria? You joined my infamous, shall we say, foundation teacher training course in 2020. 12 months, started in January 2020. And of course, we rode the wave of the COVID pandemic, didn't we? We started.
What a year that
I
was.
know.
Yeah.
I mean, if we just
like 7 lifetimes ago. Wow. Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? If we just start there, you signed up to a 12-month, 300-hour foundation yoga teacher training course, 100% in person, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
January, February, March in person. And I remember March opening all the windows and like being, I don't think we're going to be here next weekend.
I don't think I really believed it was a thing. You know, it wasn't. It was on the news. It wasn't going to be a thing. I was like, oh, they open a window, sure. Like, it's not going to be a thing. And then boom. Suddenly.
One of the ladies had been to London to do a yin training course, hadn't she? And we were all a bit like, oh, and I purposely didn't go near. Anyway, so April, May, June were then online, weren't they? And then we did this wonderful mixture really until the end of outside, indoors and online. But you did it. And everyone did it. I did it. You did it. We got through a foundation teacher training course. So you qualified with me in December 2020. Tell me then, when you finished, what happened? What was next for you?
Well, we all graduated and then we all got locked in for 5 months. So it was a very strange, we all graduated with hurrah, here we go, we're going to shine our light and here we come world, but actually we're going to all sit inside for another till May the 17th.
You're right, actually, because although we had lockdown, I see them as lockdown 1, lockdown 2, lockdown 3. Lockdown 2, we were actually was in November, wasn't it? We were actually able to carry on because it was an educational course. Yeah.
And so we were like where we are in the world, where we were in the world, we were the only bit of the country that were tier 1. So we were still allowed to move like that. But then January came and we were just put inside. And even when the world started to get back to normal, yoga was...
No, you're absolutely right. I was able to resume toddler and mum and baby in April 2021 because that was, God, it all floods back, doesn't it? It's like a trauma, like you buried it away and it all floods back. Yeah, I was able to teach toddler, but yeah, you weren't actually really back in person until June, July. And then, of course, you're off, aren't you? Cornwall, summer, everyone's left. So what did you do then once we graduated in that? It was advantageous retrospectively, because what did you do in that lockdown 3, sorry?
So through all the lockdown, so the first sort of lockdown or the first wave of COVID, I was training with you, which really gave me something to do. Like it got me through it. And I don't know how that might have been for me if I hadn't have had that with you. So then when we were coming around to lockdown 3 or whatever it was, 2, 3, I thought, well, I can't just sit here and do nothing. I'm going to have to train in something. And because I never like to do anything the easy way, I decided to train in my house at yoga trapeze. So I've never been in a trapeze. As you well know, I had a horrible fear of inversions, of being upside down, it just was not my cup of tea at all. So I thought, right, I'm going to train how to be a yoga trapeze teacher and I'm going to teach inversions. I'm just going to absolutely meet this head on and that's what I'm going to do. So I had to buy a huge rig which sat in this room like a massive trapeze stand and a trapeze, and I trained online. My coach was in Barcelona, I was here in the UK, and we trained every single day, 7 days a week, until I was a trained yoga trapeze instructor. And then I did a stretch coach training with him, and I basically just educated myself through the whole of lockdown and got through it, which I would never have done because your advice, and I think it's such sound advice, was when we graduated from the 300 hour, was just go out and teach. Like the temptation is to do another course and do another course, buy another book and and I would never have done any more training so quickly if I had been allowed out into the world to teach, but I wasn't, and I was in, and I needed to do something. And
and I think in hindsight it was the right decision. Like, I'm thinking about when I trained, although I tell you lot to just get out and teach, actually I finished my teaching course and literally the next weekend later I was doing specialist training in pre and postnatal, which was the best decision I ever made. But I think if it comes from a place of like, I knew I was going to have children, I had an interest in it. I think the problem is what happens is training procrastination. This wasn't training procrastination. You had nothing else to do but then hang upside down in your living room. Whereas what a lot of people do, they finish their training course and they tell themselves I'm not ready. I've just passed, even though they've done 200 hours plus, discounting all the many years and hours they've done prior to that. I'm not ready. I must do this, this, and this course. I must get this book. I must do this. They put all these barriers in front of them, and then they don't go out and teach, and they're just doing endless courses. So I'm going to forgive you. You did the right thing.
Yeah.
Signing up to do your trapeze and your stretch coach.
Yeah, no, I did. And it was it would have been very easy for me to go down that procrastination route. Like, I'm terrible for doing that. I'll just buy another book and I'll be ready to do this once I've got that book, or I'll just do this course and then I'll be, it's a very, very easy route to take. But by the time we finally came out of lockdown, I had all these tools under my belt. I had invested so much time, so much energy, and I was just raring to.
And you'd invested in equipment, hadn't you? Because a trapeze, I remember you sent me a message saying, I'm going to do this course and I'm going to buy this equipment. It's going to cost X amount. It wasn't a small investment, was it? We were in the middle of a lockdown.
Yeah, it was a massive investment. And it was an investment in the training. It was then an investment. If you're going to teach it as a business, well, then you've got to buy trapezes. To, people don't just have them hanging around.
Was the kit not about £2,000, wasn't it? Plus, I mean, that's a lot more than having to go out and buy 10 mats, 10 blocks, and a couple of blankets.
Yeah, it was a risk. It was a risk, and I'd never, also bear in mind, I'd never done it. I'd never even taken a class. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know if I was going to like it. I didn't know anything about it. So the first time I was ever in a trapeze was day one of teacher training. I'd never even taken a class. It was a massive risk. It was a bit wild, but in hindsight, the best thing I could have done. And it was a real business decision, and I really struggled with that. So we've just done this incredible training with you, with a very grounded sense of yoga, its roots, the philosophy, where it comes from. And then I felt like I was going gimmicky, and I really struggled with that because I felt like I was going to be judged by my peers. I felt really apologetic about it, but the decision behind it was also a business decision, because I just graduated in our area with 13 other teachers, and that's a competitive market. It is a competitive market, and I didn't feel, we would do this thing where we compare, and it's that comparison trap, and I didn't feel that I necessarily had anything more special than anyone else. Why would anyone come to my classes? So I wanted to arm myself with something that no one else was doing at all, remotely, not even close to what anyone else was doing, because I thought it might give me a bit of a fighting chance. But I just really struggled with.
I think a lot of yoga teachers do get, this is gimmicky, or this isn't yoga, or this isn't pure yoga, and this isn't being true to the roots of yoga. And I'm like, this is a load of rubbish. Right? Yoga evolved. Yoga is a human practice. Absolutely 100% has its roots in Eastern philosophy. Okay, let's not deny that. Let's not deny its roots. But it's a human practice, practiced by humans, that has evolved as humans evolved. And as we practice, my favourite thing to say is movement is movement.
Yeah.
Get people through the door. You kind of know this because I see the women coming in. That you've got them through the door because they think trapeze looks fun and they're going to hang upside down. We'll talk about this, I know, as we go on. This is, but you've changed them. Their whole mindset has changed. Like, you are making potentially very, very happy man.
I know. Yeah.
And I think yeah, absolutely. We can say that yoga's a crowded marketplace, right? I guess so. If you're going to try and do yoga for everyone, yoga for all, or just vinyasa yoga, although I just do think there is room for us all. But if you're very generic, very general, yeah, it really does help you to have something that is different, that you can offer to a different community, particularly if you are teaching somewhere that is saturated. That said, I'm always like, do the population of where you live, figure out how many people you want in your yoga class. I reckon there's room for us all.
And I will never forget something that you said quite early on in our training. Might even have been day one, and you said your vibe will attract your tribe. And oh my God, if that's not the truest thing anyone has ever said. And you also said to me, you can teach, but you cannot be everybody's teacher. And believe me, I tried.
Look, we want to be, particularly when we first start out, we don't want anyone to come to class and not like it. We don't want anyone to come to class and worse still after a refund, although we're still teaching British people tend not to do that, but we just don't want to not be liked, that's just a natural response of the brain. But ultimately you do want people to not like you, because that opposite of people thinking, now that teacher's not for me, is, oh my God, I love this person and I want to do what she's doing. And I know that, Vic, where you are 2 years later, you're at that place. So you trained in the trapeze and the stretch coach, came out of lockdown, you started up your classes. You were also working part-time. I think that's worth saying to people, because I get asked a lot, like, Amy, how are you a full-time yoga teacher? And like, I know the majority of yoga teachers I know that I work with are often working part-time, but do have a desire, a goal to be full-time. And it's that belief that it's possible. I know I've spoken to Jane about this, Jane, who you trained with as well. She just left a job, walked out the door, went all in and made it work. Yeah. That is not me. That would stress me out so much it would never work. Whereas I was working part-time. I was very much like you. I worked part-time in one job, part-time as a yoga teacher, built the yoga up to that consistent income, and then took the plunge. And I think that's fair to say where you are now, aren't you?
Yeah, it is. It is. I think I did a little bit of both of you. I think a bit of you, of course. But I always have this thing, it'll be fine. The universe will have my back. It'll be fine. I'm never not fine. I'm always fine. Right? But I also waited until my books were full, my classes were full. And it reached a really natural point where I was doing myself and my business a disservice by not
working. And it is, we're full of cliche comments today, but it's true. Sometimes you do have to let things go to let other things grow, and you have to be brave. And if you are very used to an employed income, it is really scary to stare out to what can feel like the abyss of, a service-based business. Like, I have to sell my services to make money, to put food on the table, to pay bills. Like, neither you or I have inherited large sums of money. We pay our mortgages, we pay our bills. This is how my money puts food on the table. I know, as does yours. So tell me, we've got to share this story because we plan to do this. So you qualified, you got teaching once all the lockdown finished. Tell me about your teaching schedule, because people need to hear this. Sorry, Vic, to do this to you.
God, I was such a busy fool. I did all the things that you're not meant to do. I told you not to. I know. I went everywhere that would have me. Everywhere. At all hours of the day. Now, I had classes on the other coast from where we live. We're in Cornwall.
We better explain that, because people who don't live in Cornwall will not understand that. basically you have to drive everywhere, don't you? And
Yeah.
we are on the North Cornish coast, and you had one teaching day where you taught on the South Coast in the morning. And
again,
then you went back to the South Coast in the evening. Now that is a 45-minute drive. That's an hour and a half round trip. That's a 3-hour drive to teach two yoga classes, was it?
Oh, yeah.
One in the morning, one in the evening.
But also, let's add into that no one came to. Like, genuinely, most weeks I would turn up with my mat. That evening, like genuinely the evening class, not one person ever came. Not one person came.
Well, I'm glad people are hearing this, because you do need to know that we've all been there. We've all been there where we set up a class and for whatever reason, now I'm going to tell you now the reason why that wasn't working, because your higher self, whatever, universal intelligent was like, Victoria, this is a stupid idea, whether you were consciously or subconsciously blocking it. There was a reason.
Yeah, no one came. And the morning class, I had one regular client, one. So basically, I was paying for this one woman to practice yoga with me. I was literally paying for it in my time, my money, my energy. Like, the whole thing was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. And then I had the trapeze classes, which were brand new. So I'm very lucky in the sense that no one else here does what I do. No one's qualified to do it. I am the only one. Like, I've cornered this market, right?
Let's not undersell it, Victoria. You have created a trapeze craze in the village of St Agnes and local surrounding areas. A small Cornish coastal town. I should have googled the population of St Agnes. Has grown recently in recent years, but it's still a small Cornish coastal town, right? Yeah. You have created a craze. Like, people can't get enough of it.
I know, I've created a monster. It's incredible. We'll get to the overwhelm of that in a minute. Yeah. But when I first started trapeze, I wasn't teaching it in our studios. And I taught it in a CrossFit box. So we'd come out of lockdown. I had all this gear. I had nowhere to teach it, because you need space, you need somewhere to hang the rigs. It's not easy. And I knew the CrossFit boxes have got the hanging space, right? They've got the thing. So I emailed a million of them. One got back to me and agreed to see me. Went and had a meeting with him. He was great. He was so supportive. Let me have the space. And the classes filled. Like, instantly. With CrossFit people, right? So they did it because it looks fun. It started. Then yoga trapeze is not necessarily for CrossFit people. It's not tough enough for them. They're lifting weights, they're leaping over wooden boxes, they're lunging and squatting everywhere. Yoga trapeze was not for these people. So I sold out my first course, and then it just absolutely nosedived. And
the novelty worn off.
Oh, it wore off. It was the wrong audience. And then the exact same thing happened again. I was driving across to the CrossFit box, hanging up 11 trapezes, and not one person would turn up. It was, and I had the prime spot on the Saturday morning.
I will say though, I do applaud I wrote it down while you were talking, the fact there is something to be said when we first start out by contacting local yoga studios, local gyms, and saying, hey, I'm a yoga teacher, do you need me? Because there is quite a lot to take on board. I'm going to rent a space, I'm going to set up an online booking system, I'm going to market my classes myself, potentially haven't got a community and audience. Whereas if you tap into a CrossFit gym, a local gym, that's all set up for you. So you can just turn up and teach. All my light's just gone out, so if you wonder why I've gone dark and now I still just about look beautiful. So it wasn't a bad thing, CrossFit. I just think, and you wouldn't have known, or wouldn't have got a better understanding of your audience if you hadn't have had that amazing, like, fully booked out to the plummet. And I tell you, the other thing you must celebrate here is a lot of people in this situation, and you can tell me if this happened, would have gone, I'm crap. People don't like it. That's why they're not booking on. Did that happen, Vic?
Absolutely. I doubted everything. thing, my ability as a teacher, because it'd all come, the classes have been passed out.
Yeah, totally.
So then you just, oh God, it was awful. It was awful.
It's tough. It's really tough. And when you find yourself in that situation, I did a podcast, this 2-part, help my classes are full and help my classes are empty. And I feel like you've both had both problems, haven't you? Yeah. And when your classes are empty, you've got to just look at the facts, look at the data, and not sink into that mind stuff. So the data is basically, I've got the wrong audience here. They weren't that interested in, shame, they needed your stretch.
Oh, that class, that was success.
Yeah,
That
right,
was fantastic.
Yeah.
It absolutely did not. It absolutely did not. So then, having invested all the money, I just completely killed it, and I sat on it, and I did nothing with it, and I just had to let it go.
Yeah.
And just
Because that's the challenge, isn't it? You've got to find the right space, haven't you? There are other styles of yoga that require the right space, like hot yoga's one. I think like pregnancy yoga, mum and baby yoga, toddler yoga, you've got to get the right space for those types of classes. So, and one thing that comes up quite a lot recently, particularly post-COVID, is space. Like there's less places have reopened, there's less opportunity. So sometimes you do have to stop, wait, and ask the universe. But you found the beams in the studio at the Miners and Mechanics is perfect for CrossFit. Who knew?
Yeah, for trapeze, that's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It's right on my doorstep. It was under my nose the whole time. Don't know why I never thought of it. Never thought of it. It was right there. So I guess fast forward to now, and like you said, it's just taken off. It's my classes.
Well, so let's pick up on that then, on the help my classes are full, because I remember this conversation with you, that you were feeling really overwhelmed because you had, how you were doing, were people messaging you via Facebook to book, you were booking people on, you were full with waiting lists, it was messy, wasn't it? So you had that help my classes are full problem.
Absolutely.
So how did you come out of, oh my God, I have no system, I'm full, waiting list, like loads of admin? Have you rectified that yet?
Yeah, a bit. Not, I would say not entirely.
Not entirely.
Not to look. But what I did, genuinely, I chucked some money at it. And I invested in a proper booking system.
Yeah, there you go.
That was a small change to make, but it was, once I'd convinced all my clients how to use it, because
I know, you got to train people,
but that took out a lot of the admin, automated system, and I pay a yearly fee for it, and then it has a payment system in it, so people can pay by Apple Pay or card, whatever they want, and it just automated all of that stuff. It wasn't chasing people for it. Doesn't let people book into a class unless they've paid for it. So I wasn't then chasing people for money.
We find really awkward. That
whole money conversation thing. The class was full. Well, you should have booked in earlier.
You do have to be like that. Did you put your prices up?
Put the prices up.
Good girl. Because that's another thing you should do if your classes are full, you've got waiting list demand, and you also had reached a point where you didn't have capacity to teach anymore, because there is only so many classes we can physically go out and teach a week.
And I'm still very much at that point, and I think, like, for me, I mean, I'm only at this point, I'm only 8-9 weeks into being, for, like, I only quit my job like end of September. So this is literally,
let's just also celebrate that 2 years after graduating, you are now a full-time yoga teacher. You primarily teach trapeze.
Primarily teach trapeze. I do one class a week that's not trapeze. And I'm the bill payer, like I'm the breadwinner of the, so I've been able to
and the thing is, with trapeze, you 100% need to charge more, because you've invested, the equipment costs a lot, you've invested in the training, you can only have a certain amount of people in the class. So you really do have to. And there's that whole, we're in the middle of a recession, people can't afford it. People You know, your clients can afford it. And also, yeah, people might have less money for certain things. And there certainly are some people that, like, heartbreakingly cannot even afford to heat their houses and feed themselves. They're not your clients. They may have less money, but they certainly will be prioritizing things like trapeze. You know, they might not be going on their big fancy holiday next year, but they will be still continuing to go to trapeze. So that's just blows out of the water that people can't afford yoga and that you should charge less because we're in a recession. All of that is just a load of rubbish.
It's like yoga is, I mean, you know these figures more than I do. It's something, what is it, a 60 billion pound
It's
industry?
30, well, it varies from Google search to Google search, but at the moment it's said to be $37 billion, projected to grow to $27 billion in 2017. Not just that, in the last economic crash, which was different to this one, I understand that, you know, but in the last economic crash of 2008, the yoga industry continued to grow. You know, and actually recessions, yoga is a relatively recession-proof business. And I'm thinking about your vinyasa class. It's like, we're not doing this just for money, are we? Like, your vinyasa classes, like, numbers fluctuate. You've got some students in that couldn't do your trapeze, but you're very much there just for the love of yoga. And
so I have one vinyasa class a week, which is it keeps me very real. Like, it's challenging. There are some challenging aspects to that class. I don't think I really earn any money off it, but that is my class. That there are some people that need that class.
yeah, and
that I sort of balances out. It's okay, so this I will charge for trapeze, this business, this.
But I think that's what people miss when they get tied up in, oh, I shouldn't be making money from yoga and I shouldn't be charging this for this. Well, I'm like, well, look, hang on a minute. If you have an abundance of time and money and you want to give back, you want to just keep doing this class that you're really just breaking even from, but there's some people in there that need to see you every week. It allows you to do that. Yeah. So let's get on to where we are now, because you've, like, definitely, I'm loving your evolution. So to summarize, you trained lockdown, specialized in something really random, but was a genius idea, came out of lockdown, did what so many people won't do, which is basically email loads of gyms, loads of people you don't know, and were totally open to none of them getting back to you, and only one did. You've got to do these things. You've got to put yourself out there. You taught all the classes everywhere. And again, although I told you after training, don't go out and say yes to everything, don't go and teach here, there, and everywhere, there is some element of, actually, when you first start out, you've got to say yes to these things. Yeah. And over the last, 18, 24 months, you cut your craft, as I call it. You've got really clear on what you like to do, what you want to do, and how you're going to do it. If you hadn't gone out and done it, you wouldn't know the answer to any of these things. And you've arrived at, well, you called it super niche. But not you super niche, but you super niched your client. And I was like, actually, I think you just really know your dream client.
I do. And I think that would be my key piece of advice for any yoga teacher, not even just necessarily a new yoga teacher, for any yoga teacher. So yes, my classes are niche, but that wasn't instant success for me. Like, that, absolutely, I have ridden the wave with completely, but the transformation for my business was niching my client. So I think, for me, find something that you love to teach, right? So you have to love it to be able to deliver.
It has to light you up.
It has to light you up. You cannot just do this for the money. You can't check it out.
Actually, you don't do it for the money. You do what lights you up, and actually the money then just flows. That's the other thing as well that people don't understand.
Absolutely. But you've got to love it to be able to send that out. You've got to love it. So find something that you love and deliver it to the people who want it. In the people that want it, find the people that need it.
And then also, like, let's be honest, like, you're quite, I mean, I love your stories because I really like you just seeing you walk the dog on the beach. That's all it is. But social media wise, there's a bit on social media, but you're not, like, massively on it all the time, are you?
No, I probably should be.
No, but you don't need to be. Your classes are full. I'm just trying to prove to people that you're not on some content treadmill. Website wise, you have more like, is it a website or is it more like a booking type site, isn't it? Yeah,
I don't have a website.
yeah. This is important to hear.
I don't have a website.
Yeah.
No, I'm not on social media every day. I try and do something. I try and post once a week. I'm not very good at it.
You've got some lovely reels. I will put in the show notes links to your Instagram. You've got some great reels.
Yeah, I'm good. When I can be bothered to do it, I'm all right at it.
Yeah.
I don't have a website at all. I've just last week done my email list and sent my first email. Yes. And my booking site is, I use Momo Yoga. So I use
Yeah. Because I don't think you need a website. I think now you've got a mailing list, what the power of that's going to be is you on your mailing list is going to be, it doesn't have to be big, but all your dream clients and anything new that you may be offering them, because we get tangled up into niches. Oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. Whereas you teach vinyasa yoga, you teach trapeze yoga, you can also teach the stretch coach stuff. Don't worry. I know he's been so good, and Pancake's not barked either. We're nearly getting there, dogs. Hang on, 5 more minutes. Yeah, so you've got niching doesn't mean, I'm like, you're the niche in your business. And then you've got to understand who your ideal client is. You might have several ideal clients if you've got different, like, let's be honest, like my yin club membership is very different to people who are going to come to pregnancy yoga, but for you, I think you very much have got this, let's be honest, lady of a certain age who you can really identify with and understand, and you've used yoga to help you with your stage of life, and you're passionate about helping them. And that's the key to it. And then your dream clients that you're talking about, and you did it. I found the clients that thought they needed it or wanted it, and then the ones that needed it. And you did this with your hands. If you're listening on the podcast, I realize you can't hear, but she moved her hand on a little path, right? Well, what happens is, this is magnetic marketing. People don't understand, right? You call out, you just put out from the heart center space, this is what I do, this is where I want to help people. Do you want it? You begin to magnetize that type of person. The universe literally hooks you up. They love it because you love it. They go, oh, I know this great person. Oh, let's all come along. Before you know it, you started a trapeze yoga craze in the village of St. Agnes. Now you're a full-time yoga teacher because your income has hit a point where it's consistent. And now we're on to that point, is like, we are obviously recording this podcast December 2022, so it feels right, Vic, to sort of like close the day on what are your plans for 2023, so people can see like the evolution of, like, now Vic is self-employed, what's she thinking about next. So because the bottom line is, we have to go out and sell our services to continue to so obviously carrying on your wonderful trapeze stuff.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, like, the trapeze absolutely is, that pays the mortgage, it puts food on the table, it absolutely does. But taking your dream client on board, so for next year, it's tapping into more what this person and almost bringing it back round more to, for my dream client, it is bringing it back to its roots a little bit. I'm going to be tapping more into breath work and stillness and meditation, but with my dream client who has, this is your day one advice, your vibe attracts your tribe. I found her. So now it's more working one-to-one with people.
Yeah. And she's ready to receive it.
Yes.
Like, if you put out, I'm gonna pranayama workshop, like, probably nobody would sign up, like, but now you've got a group of people who love doing trapeze with you, you've opened the door to possibility, they trust you, they're like, oh, this is curious, well, I was unsure about trapeze, but it's changed my life, I wonder what happened if I take up pranayama.
And it's just about being a bit clever. Now I know who my dream client is, I know what she wants, I know the areas of her life where she needs help. You can serve her. You can serve her. And it's really interesting. All the things that I worried about being judged by my peers, about not doing, doing gimmicky yoga, not doing proper yoga. Actually, I call it like real yoga for real people, because the people that are using all the Sanskrit and care about doing, 18 rounds of, I know, Kapalabhati breath before they sit up. But they're very few, right? They're not your everyday people that go to the yoga class. They're just not. And those people will find training courses.
Teacher, and they're they're, if they're really into that side of things, they'll find a teacher that's really into that side of things and will support that.
But my client isn't that person, but she does have terrible anxiety because she's at that age and maybe she's perimenopausal and moving into menopause. So I know you need a bit of alternate nostril breathing, but call it whatever it is.
Nadi Shodhana. You don't have to call it that, because if you say Nadi Shodhana, she's like, what earth are you talking about, darling?
If I say to her, I know, anxiety is a bit of a thing, try this for a few minutes in the morning. And
also, like, if you talk about balancing out hormones, balancing out nervous system, any perimenopausal, menopausal woman will go, I was reading my hormonal balance book last night. Please today. I just want people to know what you're doing now, though, is I don't know if you know it, but you just instinctively know what you're doing, by the way, which is why it's all working out for you. But you're now thinking about creating offers, whatever's coming. Like, sometimes it's good just to be open to possibility, but for people who are already in your community, because what people get stuck on is like, I've got to come, I need more people into my community, I need more offers. But this is ridiculous. You don't need a large community of people to be full-time yoga teacher and have an income that serves you.
You really don't. And I see it all the time with people, like, as a teacher and then in that teacher community, I can't go online, I can't do this, I haven't got a big following. Don't get so hung up on like growing your following, pulling in more people, pulling on more people. The people you've already got are your people.
Serve them. I'm like, if you've invited me around, I use this analogy a lot. If you'd invite me around to your lovely house for a dinner party, but you wanted more people at that dinner party, and I was around the table and you completely ignored me and went out into the street looking for more people, I'd be like, I am not coming to dinner around Vix again. She doesn't want me here. Whereas if you really serve those that are in front of you, this is how you fill an empty class. You turn up every week, 1-2 people, you're the best yoga teacher for them ever. They magnetize more people towards you. To finish, I put you on the spot about this, but in a few podcast time before I end 2022, I'm going to do the word of the year. I have a word of the year. I know you do too. I don't know if you fully formalized yours, but what have you got one for next year you want to share?
I think so. My one for this year was Rise.
I love that.
It really worked, and I really feel like I've fulfilled that. I think my one, I'm sitting with it. I think it's for next year. I think it's going to be Thrive. And because there's always that fear that, I have just jacked in my job. This is now my full-time job. And so there is a bit of, that, of course there is. And so it's thriving now. And I just that's got to be my thing. It's just got to keep on.
I was thinking trust as well, Victoria. Maybe just trust that you've made the right decision.
Oh, no, that was the year before. That was the year.
That's weird. Yeah. And the reason why I'm talking about this, so to finish, I want people to hear, like, I've not gone, right, what are your goals? What is your income goals? What are your plans? What are your programs? What are your courses? Like, this will evolve. This will evolve if you just allow it to unfold, and you'll have some idea. And as you talked about the trapeze, that's completely U-turned on how you expected this to end up.
I think for me, and I don't know, this might just be me, I find it a really dangerous ground for me, setting goals, because I think evolving is more certainly what my business has done. If I set goals, I almost feel like I'm setting myself up to fail them before I've even started. Do you know what I mean? I think it's like I don't make New Year's resolutions.
No, but that's the word. I love the word. I'm a big fan of a vision board.
Yeah.
Vision board, a word, and then just being open, receptive to where, and then you'll get some sort of weird download when I don't know, and you're like, I'm going to do this, and then like that trapeze course must have been some weird download. 2021 lockdown, January, somewhere deep inside you had this, I'm going to do this. And look where it's led you. Victoria, I just want to say a massive thank you, because you've come on today and answered one of the questions that I get asked quite a bit, actually, was how can you be a full-time yoga teacher? I need to see evidence of it being possible. I need to, how do I ever end up getting there? And you have shown everyone the journey from training to getting out there, for taking action, even if you're going to fail, even if everyone's going to ignore you, even if your classes flop or your classes thrive, you've learned from your mistakes, and here we are 2 years down the line, full classes, you've created a craze, which I just love. You are completely clear on who you're serving, which just leads you. I'm just like, you're like, ready 2023. You can't, because you know who you are serving and what they need and how you can help them. To be honest, whatever you create is going to work.
Yeah. And you've got to trust that. Once you've found your person, stick with them. It's
a combination of like knowing exactly who it is you want to serve, who's vibing with you. And then the other thing, but I know you're good at this as well, is like, how do I want to work? Because you want to take that lovely dog of yours on the beach every day. So like, when you're thinking of creating anything new, you've got to be sure that you're definitely not signing yourself up to driving 3 hours a day, mate.
Don't do that. Please don't do that. Yeah. I think my other thing that I'm still having to work on, but it is boundaries. It's absolutely setting boundaries. And I'm still very guilty. And you know what it's like. People, in fact, on Friday night, it was 1:45 midnight. I was somehow still awake, and someone messaged me about classes.
And did you message back?
I didn't, but it's and I felt really proud. But me last week would have immediately messaged back, and it's like, no, set your boundaries, make this work for you, and it will work for you. And make your mistakes, and just keep going. Just
100%.
I do not believe anyone gets it right straight out the traps, and no one has ever been an overnight success.
No, because we could easily go onto your trapeze booking site and say, oh, Victoria's got full classes, look at that. Nobody sees you 18 months prior to that driving 3 hours a day to teach one person. I'm not gonna let that go, because I told you not to do that. And then when you told me your teacher time, I was like, I'm busy driving around quite a lot. But you've got, you know what? If you don't go, you don't know.
Exactly. Absolutely. And it's all good experience, and you learn something from it. Always.
Totally. Thank you, Victoria, for coming on today, proving it's possible, because it's like, it really matters that it's not just me telling people this can happen, that they hear and see it from other teachers. So I'll make sure in the show notes there's a link to your booking site, there's a link to your Instagram, so you can check out Victoria hanging upside down, follow her on stories. What's your dog called, Victoria? I've forgotten his name.
This is John.
Right, so if you want to see John daily on the beach, follow Victoria on Instagram. Check out her stories, because you can see John on the beach. He's addictive, he's gorgeous. I actually use it to check the surf as well. Like, oh, yeah, because you're on the beach, so I was like, oh, it's on shore, oh, it's quite big, oh, it's clean.
Serving my community.
Serving the community. Thank you so much, my darling, and I will see you all soon.